Corner. Out front tonight, Republican Congressman Bilbray of California. I'm sure, Congressman, you don't love our analogy, but when you hear Rick Perry, you hear Marco Rubio talking about what seems to be pretty close to what the president did today. Are you frustrated that your party may have handed the president this political victory?
No, I'm frustrated that the president and a lot of other people in Washington won't come down to the border and see what I've seen growing up on the border. You know, Erin, I grew up with 2 houses between my childhood home and the Mexican border, and I've seen every time the politicians play games with this and go for votes, people get the wrong message down south and try to come into this country illegally. And I've recovered their bodies. I'm the only member of Congress that have rescued illegals when they were drowning, recovered their bodies, and seen them slaughtered on the highways. And frankly, this is a game that most people in Washington don't realize the human cost of sending this mixed messages. And if somebody wants to talk about this issue, you're still talking about symptoms of the problem. And the problem is we continue to reward people who are hiring the illegals that entice them to come up. And now the president is saying, if you send your kids up here, if you give your kids to a smuggler and send them to the United States, we will accommodate them, we will give them citizenship, we will give them a job, we will give them an education, and then we wonder why so many people are dying along the border. And I just ask some of you that are back in the East Coast, come down to the border and talk to those of us that have seen what happens when the politicians play politics with something that ends up costing people's lives down here on the border, because you're sending a mixed message. Think about what a young mother in Oaxaca thinks about the president saying, I am now officially going to say that if you're under 30 years old, you can get permanent residency and education in the United States. What do you think that young mother is going to think about the future of their children down south or sending them up north with a smuggler?
Look, you make a strong case, but there are many in your party, including Marco Rubio, including Rick Perry, governor of a border state, who believe that this makes a lot of sense. You heard Rick Perry, you don't have a heart. A lot of these kids came with their parents, and we're not talking about their parents, 5, 4, 3 years old. They're now 20 years old. This president only applies this to people who aren't convicted of crimes, who have high school degrees or equivalents, who have served in the U.S. military. These are the kinds of people we want here. The Rubio bill would give visas for children of illegal immigrants, very similar to the metrics I just expressed for Barack Obama. So are you against the concept overall?
Look, I'm against the concept of not taking care of the problem, but rather playing politics with it. If you want to take care of the problem, Rubio, I don't care the president, I don't care if Perry, let's go to the source. Let's stop rewarding illegal employers who entice the parents of these kids to come across illegally. How about the federal government stop giving a tax deduction to the people who hire illegals? How about simple thing like, why isn't E-Verify being accepted? Even the president admits it works. And the problem is, because it does work, because they would rather address the symptoms of a much deeper problem.
But the bill's been sitting on the floor for several years that this conversation could have happened. Some of those elements were in the bill that's there, and it wasn't voted on. So that's why he did this today.
You know, Erin, the problem is you're talking about how do we accommodate the illegal immigration before we stop it and control it, so then we can address it across the board. But this attitude of, we've got to figure out how do we accommodate the problem, but let's not talk about the problem, because the real source of the problem are big contributors to us, very powerful people, very influential process, when in fact you're continuing to treat the symptoms. And let me tell you something, you want to see the symptoms, hold on 1 second. You come down and see the people that are dead on the border. That's the real symptoms of the problem.
And I'm sure seeing that is horrific, but obviously there are many more people. I mean, there are 11 million, 12 million illegal immigrants in this country. You know, that's much more than you see people on the border. But what about the president's record here? I mean, he has a very strong record on being tough on immigration. That's why he scored such political points today. He's deported 30 more people every year than President George W. Bush did. He's deported 400,000 people last year and this year. It was a record last year. He's got drones going on the border. You can't say he hasn't been tough on getting rid of people coming in.
Erin, I've had immigration officers come into my office and are saying that this administration, this president, is telling them not to enforce the law, that they are in a catch-22, that they have a commander-in-chief that's telling them to not enforce the law that they're sworn to enforce. That's from ICE agents. And all I got to say is somebody ought to be talking to the men and women who are being required to enforce these policies and their frustration of going in and with a search warrant. and only being able to take the people that they are identified, but not even being able to ask for identifications for other people that are in safe houses, that are in smugglers' safe houses. This is the kind of frustration that these agents are getting. And again, it may be fine if you're from Chicago to think that this is okay. It's okay maybe if you're in Florida. But let me tell you something. If you're down on the border and see what's going on, your frustration is Washington would rather try to win votes with this issue than take care of the issue and try to defend the concept that we're a nation of laws that need to be fairly enforced, but need to be enforced, not ignored.
Right.
And I think that what you're seeing now is a problem that it's a political maneuver that's cynically being implemented. And Erin, if it was so right to be done, why didn't he do it before? And why didn't
Well, because Congress, Republicans and Democrats, you guys wouldn't get together and deal with the DREAM Act he had. That's why he did it. And sure, he did it for politics.